children of the right age, you can be dismissed at this time. So we will continue in our series. I got to find my clicker here. There we go. Continuing in our series on Ephesians, and with the theme of, we'll get there in a second, you must live your life with God's value system. You must live, and the notes are there in your bulletin if you want to follow along and write down and all that kind of stuff. You can do that. But the theme of this section of Ephesians is you must live your life with God's value system. We've talked about mutual submission in all relationships, starting in Ephesians 5:21, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. And as we had looked at that, we understand that that willingness for mutual submission flows out of our love for God, not because we have a command to do it. Now, there is a command to do it. Don't get me wrong. But it flows out of a gratitude and a thankfulness that we saw in the preceding context. We saw that God's will for us, that we were to guide our lives by these principles that we find in verse 15 with wisdom and with an eternal urgency. In other words, these are the principles that we're to guide our life. We're to have wisdom and redeem the time, for the days are evil. Then we saw what the will of God was. We saw that the will of God was to not be drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit. So we're to have outside influences, not to cause us ill, but to guide us into grace and to goodness. We saw that we were to speak and sing with God's word on our lips, and we saw that we were to always give thanks. And I stopped and I said this, and I've said it a couple times in review. So many times the will of God, we want the will of God to be, who am I going to make?